Okay, a little heavy, but I just lifted that whole engine up and out of the way, so we'll be able to clean that off. More importantly, we'll be able to clean out all of this crap that's piled in here. So all of that, look at all of this disgustingness here. This is...
I'm gonna dump it. I'm gonna dump
all right, go ahead, go shake it off. Careful, that's really greasy there. Watch the back of your hand. All right, clean this again.
Can I start the motor?
You can't start the motor. We took the carburetor and all the wires off.
Can I start vacuuming it?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Hey, get this spot you missed over here. You put it right over it.
To make this.
Yeah. That's all right. Here. Oh.
What's that?
Looks like oil.
Why is that coming up?
That's not good. There must have been oil sitting on top of the piston for some reason. It must be... Oh, you know what? When we had this tilted on its side, oil must have gotten into the top end.
Then how did it come up now?
Well, because I'm pushing the piston. The piston's going over, and it's coming up on the compression stroke, and it's displacing the oil. See it?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Is oil supposed to be in there?
no. Get compression, I'll tell you that much. On that cylinder, we definitely got compression. Actually, it's not done.
How we can fix that cylinder?
Yeah. Well, take the spark plug out. We'll turn it over, and it'll force the oil out.
Okay, now what's our next step?
Take a break. Break time. See how it doesn't want to go any further than that?
Yeah.
That's probably what they call hydro lock.
What does that mean?
It means that there's enough oil trapped on the top of that piston that it's not compressing, not allowing the piston to come all the way up. Do you know if my little squeeze bubble thing fits over there?
Might be.
We might be able to use that as a syringe to draw some of this oil out. Now we want to make a big mess all over the ground. Took the spark plug out on this side and that side. That one looks normal. This one is oil soaked, so all the oil appears to have settled in this side of the engine.
Do you want to put this in all the way?
No, you actually can take it back out now. Just put it there.
Okay.
That'll make it easy to crank this over. So what I want to do is I want to crank this over and see if we can get the oil to come out of this side.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, getting all over the place. All right. All we need is go back to work with our little. I'll just use this thing without the hose on it.
The hose was just a death trap.
Death trap. That's a little dramatic.
Oil trap.
Oop, still oil in there. That might do it. There you go. See? Boy, is this thing gonna smoke when we get it running.
Why?
Yeah, burn off all that oil that's in there.
Is that good?
Huh?
Is that good for it?
No,
Really?
it'll be okay. Just saying, it'll smoke a lot until all the oil's burned off.
Is that why your truck smokes
I don't
a
know
lot?
why so much oil would have gotten in here in the first place, though. That's kind of weird. My truck doesn't smoke a lot. You're talking about the diesel?
Yeah.
That's not oil, that's diesel fuel. When the diesel engine's cold, not all of the fuel is burning, so it's not as efficient. Missed them.
You want bug spray? Sorry?
Yep, probably a good idea.
I heard if there's more, but I'll grab it for you.
All right, my battery here in my zero turn has still has a charge on it, so I got a temporary wire hooked up to the American Boss starter that we're trying to rescue from having to be replaced. So let's see. Actually, it doesn't sound too bad. I think we can
Live with it.
I think we can live with it. All right, so what was holding us up on this little tractor repair of Mark's was finding something so I can fix this starter. So I got the starter motor working again, but this Bendix part of the starter was the problem. This spring that was originally in here had completely rotted away. And after some searching and intrepidation, I finally was able to procure a spring that I think is going to work. It seemed like every spring I was trying was either not the right diameter to fit over the shaft, or was the diameter of the wire it was made out of was so thick that it was too stiff. I think, even though this appears like it's going to be too long, I think once it's compressed, I think it will give the correct amount of tension to allow this to go back. So what I need to do though is I want to clean up this shaft. I'm not going to bother cleaning this gear up because it's going to be a pain to try and clean it anyways, and quite frankly that is small potatoes compared to the entire flywheel teeth being rusted, and that's going to have a self-cleaning property once I get it running again. A few starts and it'll start zipping that rust right off. But I do want to clean this area right here so that the spring doesn't bind. I don't think it's going to, but just for the heck of it, as long as we get it apart now. I'm going to put some grease on these teeth. I guess a light film on the shaft here won't hurt. Maybe this spring isn't strong enough. It seems to. I think I've got too much grease on there. Alright, so there's a lesson learned. I guess shouldn't use grease on there. I removed a lot of the grease and now it's returning back. Still doesn't return back all the way like I wish it would. The only other thing I could do is I could stretch this spring out so that when I preload it, it puts a little bit more force on there. I think maybe we'll just try it and see how it works. Alright, so we're just laying this in here temporarily. We don't even have the sheet metal back on it and everything. Just so that we can use the tractor's wiring system to try and engage the starter. What I'm hoping is going to happen is I'm hoping that when this hopefully the starter will work, and that when I let go of the key, that the spinning action of the flywheel will kick this back out. And I'm hoping that won't make a difference, that is not going back as well as I kind of wished it would. We shall find out in a moment. So I just got to hook up the starter wire and the ground wire, and we'll throw a battery in it. Alright, so Mark just finished tightening up the battery cables, and now hopefully there's enough charge in the battery, and hopefully our safety circuit is going to work and allow this thing to crank, and then hopefully the starter will work. So we got a whole lot of things we got to hope for. Let's see if any of those things come true. You know what else we should have hoped for? We should have hoped that this key from my other Ariens 0 turn would fit this. And it doesn't. I'll go get a screwdriver because that's what we started with. Alright, let's try this again. Alright, well the ammeter is showing a draw when I turn this, which is a good sign. There could be any number of things. I don't for the life of me remember.
There's a button right here.
That you took out.
That's right, we were having a problem with this. Oh, these two wires have to be together. These two wires are for the seat switch, which I bypassed because I replaced the seat years ago with a generic seat. Something else.
Right there is where the safety switch is.
Yeah, I know.
I think you bypassed that one too.
I think I did too.
You did. What about?
So it was just the PTO one. Let me try this again. All right, the battery's kind of dead, so just put the starter charger on there just so we can just see if it's gonna hopefully crank.
Did you shut the PTO off?
What?
You shut the PTO off?
Yeah, I did.
You're making me worry for a second.
There's the PTO on. PTO off. On, off. So that should be cranking right there. I don't know if we're overlooking another safety switch.
We have the seat. That's
PTO, the seat, and
The
you
neutral.
sure this is disconnected? Maybe this isn't disconnected. The neutral safety switch is the only one we haven't looked at. Oh yeah, yep, it's this. Yep, that's bypassed. Okay. All right, so
How about these two wires are just staying out there right there?
those two wires come from the stator or the alternator and go to the voltage regulator, which isn't there. Oh, I wonder if we have to have the voltage regulator hooked up to make this work. I'm not sure why, but I guess it's possible. You put the PTO on, you turn the key, it shuts the PTO off. That must be a safety feature. Did we have a problem with this solenoid before when we were trying to start it? I can't remember. Solenoid is under the dash here behind the battery, and I just verified that when we turn the key to the crank position, it's 12 volts getting to this post on the solenoid. So I think the solenoid is stuck. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the solenoid out and see if we can't whack it and see if we can't get it to free up. If not, we're going to have to get another solenoid. All right, Mark, this device right here is called the solenoid.
Yeah.
It acts like a relay. What happens is the starter needs high current coming from the battery through this big, thick, heavy cable to go to it to start the motor.
Yeah.
If that current tried to go through this little key switch right here, it would burn up. So what they do is they use a solenoid to allow this small switch to control it's like a much bigger switch. What's actually in here, there's an electromagnet in here. And there's a plunger. And what happens is when we turn the key and 12 volts goes to this connection right here, as long as this is grounded and 12 volts goes to here, that electromagnet, when energized, it will pull a plunger down, okay? And, well, actually, in this case, it probably pushes it in that direction. That plunger will have contacts that will make a connection from here to here. So there's a piece of metal in there that gets slammed up against the back sides of these studs right here and makes the connection. So if I take a screwdriver and I go right across here, I'm bypassing the solenoid altogether.
Yeah.
And I'm sending the battery power directly to the starter, which could work, but it's going to make a big burn mark on my screwdriver, which I don't like doing. So Plus, we got to figure out what's wrong with this anyway, so we might as well just... So, I measured with the meter here to ground, and when you turn the key, there was 12 volts here. So that tells me that the 12 volts is getting up to this point, but I wasn't hearing any clicking noise. Nothing was happening here, so... That's what told me that something was up. So this little green wire goes to the start circuit.
Yeah.
So we're going to disconnect that. And then this red wire goes to the whole circuit on the tractor. That's the main power to the rest of the tractor. So that's why it goes through this box right here, which is a fuse. So that we can do nothing about because we don't have the right size. That is bigger. That is ½ inch.
Okay.
All right, so we got to get a ½ inch. Take those off. And then we can work with the solenoid out completely and see what's what. So we just got to remember when we put this back together that this red wire, which feeds power to the tractor, has to be on the side of the solenoid that's directly connected to the battery. Which makes sense, because if it was on this side, then this whole thing would be dead until the solenoid closed. The solenoid can't close unless there's 12 volts here. 12 volts can't come here unless this is working. Right? Did you follow that at all?
Yes.
Okay. I know I said that kind of fast. But we're losing daylight. Now, we've got the solenoid out of the tractor, so we can play around with this completely independent of the tractor. So if I take this and I ground it here, and then I run 12 volts from here to here, this should click. So just for giggles, we'll put this on here. You see how that's sparking?
Yeah.
That's good. That tells me that this is drawing current. That means that the coil for the electromagnet isn't burnt open, because if the coil is burnt open, that would be bad. And when I do this, I can actually feel a little something in here. I can feel that thing trying to move.
So do you think it's just rusted?
It's probably just stuck. So what we'll do is we'll give it a wrap. We can't take this apart and try and clean it and put it back together, because look what they did.
Yeah.
They riveted this at the factory. They used rivets. I should scratch that. I can take this apart. All I have to do is drill these rivets out. That would let me take this black plate off, take this all apart, clean it all, put it all back together.
Then trash it.
No, and then it probably would work, and then I'd have to just find 4 little screws. But let's see. Can't get this thing to work with just a little magic. How's that?
Boom chickalaka.
So I'm just going to do this a few times.
Get it. Good.
So guess what we're going to do now? Instead of putting this all back in the tractor
We're gonna hook this
and
stuff
dealing with the PTO switch and the key switch and blah, 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 what we're going to do is we're going to just use my little cheater wire here, and what I was just doing right here, we're going to just hook the starter up to these posts, and we're going to get this thing to turn over right like this. Capiche?
Capiche.
Alright, we're going to get ready to start this. So, the only other thing we need is we need the solenoid to be, forgot to run the ground cable from here back to the tractor. Alright, we got the negative battery cable hooked back up. I've got it hooked back up to the bracket here, which should ground it to the tractor, which is basically the frame of the tractor is what the starter's using for to complete the circuit. So now, when I touch this to the 12 volts here on this post, that should energize the solenoid and send the battery power right to the starter. Let's see if there's enough charge to do anything.
Oh yeah.
Alright, so I think our battery's just too low. So let's put the starter charger back on it.
How do I do that?
Press the button that says reset.
How long?
No, just press it once.
Okay.
And then press engine start. Oops.
You just pressed it.
That's all right, it's just a bad connection. See if it says ready.
Yep.
Okay. Ready?
Yep.
Wow,
Yeah.
that battery's really dead. I don't think it's ready. Hold on. Boy, that battery is really dead.
But it did crank, right?
Yeah.
That's a good thing.
Yeah. I'm just not convinced whether or not that start is okay.
The start is working.
What's that noise?
The her.
No, the rrr is normal. It's the click noise I don't like. Can't figure out what's making that noise.
Is it that like spring that?
I don't see the alignment of this shaft maybe is causing a problem. Let's see. See if that's better. Well, maybe we let it on the battery overnight, fully charge the battery, and see what it does tomorrow. So the Bendix gear is still engaged, but my theory is that if the engine had started, the flywheel would continue rotating like so, and then you see then the Bendix gear zips out of the way. So I'm hoping that's gonna work, because if we fully charge this battery and tomorrow it doesn't crank this thing well, then unfortunately I think your starter is junk, because we kind of like we're on a wing and a prayer trying to make sure that that starter was gonna work by taking it all apart, cleaning it, and the bearings in there are kind of, you know, iffy. A lot of compression in that sucker.
Is that a good thing?
Oh yeah, compression's a good thing.
Okay.
It just makes it hard for the starter to turn it. This is an early motor. There's no automatic compression release or anything like that on this. On modern motors, overhead valve engines, they have a feature that keeps the valves open a little bit when it's cranking to help the
Engine stuff.
the starter spin the engine faster. So that's what the deal is now. We're gonna put this battery on charge overnight, and then tomorrow we'll head out here and we'll check it out. All right, so it's the next day and we've had the battery on the charger overnight, so there should be plenty of juice in that battery. So hopefully this will spin like it should now. I don't like it, Mark. I think you might need a new I think you might need a new starter. I just bought this battery in June, so it should have taken a full charge. See what happens with the boost on. Kind of unimpressive. All right, this is a battery load tester. What this does is this tests the voltage in the battery while putting a load on it, which a load means kind of like making the battery do some work. So it'll give us a better idea of the condition of the battery. See, so right now it's showing me that the battery is at about 12.5 volts. And then what we do is when I flip this spring-loaded switch over and I hold it for 10 seconds, I see how far down the battery drops. 9, 10. So it does drop down to about 10.9 volts. Should still be good enough to crank this thing. We got one or two things going on here. We either got a bad start or something's, for some reason the motor isn't spinning freely. Oops. I'm gonna go get a spark plug wrench. Let's take the spark plugs out. That'll make it easier to spin the motor and see what happens.